Greetings, everybody, and welcome to
Hello.
our second online GMI Berklee series session. We're so happy to have all of you here, joining us from all over the world. Through these sessions, we are celebrating our decade long partnership with the prestigious Berklee College of Music. And we've just announced our GMI Berklee track, which we are very, very happy and proud of. We did a first session 2 weeks back, and we sort of laid out the whole idea of the GMI Berkeley track. And the it is essentially a program where you can start your music education at GMI in India, and then transfer credits and finish your degree at one of the wonderful campuses of Berkeley in Valencia, in Boston, or New York. So those of you who were there for the last session, welcome back. And those of you who missed it, and if you'd like to check it out, we have that session on our Facebook page, Global Music Institute's Facebook page, so you can go and check that out. We'll also be sharing that on our YouTube as well. So today's session is about celebrating the global Indian musician. So it's about what it is to be an Indian musician in the global context today, and how one may navigate the changing landscape of the global music community. Helping me lead today's session, we have Jason Camillo, who is the Assistant Vice President of Global Initiatives at Berklee, a wonderful trombonist, writer, and producer. Hi, Jason.
Greetings, everybody. It's fantastic to be here. Congratulations to GMI, and I'm really honored to be here with these incredible artists. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And my brother Tarun, who is a wonderful drummer and composer and also co founder of GMI. Hey, Tarun.
Hello, it's great to be back on the second session. And of course, great to see Jason once again and all these lovely artists that are on this call. So can't wait to
Yes.
get chatting.
Exactly, and we have some amazing, wonderful guest speakers. Please help us welcome Zoya, joining us all the way from LA. Again, it's super, super early for her. Thank you for doing this, Zoya.
Yeah, of course. Anything for you guys. I'm so proud of you guys. This is amazing. This is a really big step. So it's really good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoya. Thank you. She's an amazing singer, songwriter, and performer, and we'll be chatting a bit more with her about her music in a bit. We have Abhinav Agarwal, who is a ethnomusicologist and social entrepreneur, and he is the founder director of Unheard Foundation, which is doing some amazing work, and we'll get to dive deeper with him on that. Hi, Abhinav.
Thanks, Aditya, for having me. Really excited for the session.
Great, man. Nice to have you here. We have Vasudha Sharma, who's a singer-songwriter and producer. She's joining us from Mumbai. Hey, Vasudha.
Hi Aditya, thank you so much for having me, and it's wonderful as usual. I mean, with alongside such incredible musicians, and I'm getting to meet them as well for the first time, so which is amazing. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. And we have Amira Gill, who's joining us from Bangalore. She's a vocalist, songwriter, and music therapist. Hey, Amira.
Hello. So happy to
Thank you
see
for
all of you
being.
guys.
Thank you so much for being with us. All right. So to get the ball rolling, we can invite our speakers to share a bit about their story, and we can pick their brains. And then what we'll do is we'll open up for some questions. A lot of you sent us some really nice questions on Instagram, and we're going to take some of those questions. And all of you joining us on Zoom, there is a Q&A feature here. You'll see it on your screens. You can type your questions for the panel, and then we can hopefully take some of those questions as well. So, Zoya, can we begin with you, or is it super early for you right now? You want
Oh,
to chill out?
let's start with the person who has not slept.
Uh,
No, it's okay. Yeah, for sure. Let's go. Let's talk.
Amazing, amazing. So yeah, so you've been doing some absolutely wonderful work. I just heard your single Caged. That's pretty cool. Uh,
Uh,
nice, nice. Congrats on all the work you've been doing. So let's maybe go back to a bit about how it all began for you. I think from what I know, you were born in India and then you were raised in California. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
yes, yes, that's totally true. I was born in India but grew up in Southern California.
Okay. And how was that? Like, were you like very early on? Did you get into music very early on,
Yeah,
or?
music has been a part of my life since I was so young. My family, we would throw these huge Indian parties in Southern California, and I think I just had music around me since a little kid. And then I knew I wanted to do this since I was little. I think in context of the panel right now, I think now looking back on it, I never thought my dream was possible because I was Indian. And that
Mm,
completely shifted after Berklee. I went to Berklee 2011 to 2014. And it was an incredible place where you're surrounded by artists from all over the world. And I actually studied music business instead of songwriting or performance, like a lot of my friends did, which prepared me for the next chapter that I didn't really realize it would at the time, but it did. And after after Berklee was when India happened. So
right.
it's been an easy journey so
That's
far.
amazing. So did you like have any kind of training in Indian music, or was it sort of like just hanging out with everybody? You kind of picked things up, or?
I just had my dad bought me a guitar when I was 11, and I just started making music. I would sing melodies, and he kind of saw what I was doing, bought me a guitar, and then I kind of put it all together and recorded. He put me in a studio when I was like 12 years old in Noida, in India, to record an album when I was super little. Like my dad was just like this person who was like, go create, go make music. So luckily, I was lucky to have him in my life growing up. And yeah, and Berklee sealed the deal kind of for my future. And now it's been like these 3 chapters, like Berklee, India, and now back in LA. So it's been
That's
interesting.
quite amazing. So yeah, so I think I met you when you were in India for some time, I think. So how long, like after Berkeley, how long were you in India? And what
I
was that
was
whole
in
experience
for
like?
3.5, 4 years.
Right.
It was crazy. I mean, I graduated from Berklee. You graduate, you're on tour with like your college friends, no clue about the future. Should I move to LA? Should I move to New York? Everyone's making that decision. And that was when the universe kind of stepped in, and A.R. Rahman shared about me on Facebook. It was the most random thing that has ever happened to me in my life. And to this day, I've never gotten to thank him for this one thing that he's done, because India happened. And that was when, around that time, MTV Indies and Rolling Stone started showing interest in writing some articles here and there. And I was like, what is this? I actually called Vasudha, being like, what's happening in Mumbai? Like, I had no idea what was going on, and started researching. And then that research turned into me and my guitarist being like, hey, should we go to India? And that 1 month turned into 3.5, 4 years. I got to India quickly became very close with a lot of people in the scene, and signed to Crunk and moved to India. And
Right.
the most incredible experiences of my life so far. And yeah, leaving India is a whole different story, but being in India it prepared me for what I'm doing now, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, that's quite incredible. And then that sort of, as you said, that led you to move back to LA?
Yeah, I think in India at that time, everything was growing so quickly, and
Hmm.
it was so
True.
incredible to be a part of it. But after, you do it for 3, 4 years, that was when that seed had been planted in my head. Like in India, everything's happening for the first time. We are all creating this new world for
Right.
upcoming young musicians in the country, or creatives in general.
Yeah. Especially
And
for
in
indie
my
music. Yeah.
Yeah, and any indie music, non-Bollywood stuff. And I think in my head, that was when I started to think, that was when everything clicked about my childhood, about why I thought this wasn't possible for me in America, because we've never really had an example of an Indian global artist, growing up. Like there really was none, and very few Indian personalities in pop culture globally, like as an Indian girl
Right.
growing up in America. So that was when I was like, you know what, like, should I go try this? Like, should I go back? And luckily that feeling has led me down a whole new path here in LA. I got back and quickly I met with a lot of labels and got signed, and it's been incredible so far. Like working with, you know, Lady Gaga's producers and trying to do this pop thing on a global level, because hopefully one day some girl grows up thinking that it's possible because there's more of us doing it.
Right,
So
right.
it's been such a full circle journey, and I'm just, yeah, really thankful for India, for
Yeah.
Berklee, for all of it. It's crazy. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's amazing. And yeah, so please tell us about, you know, what are the current projects that you're working on, if there's anything upcoming that we can look out for.
Yeah. Well, during COVID quarantine, like the heavy part of quarantine, I released an album called Bad Girl's Dream, and
Right.
features Jack Harlow, who's one of the number one rappers right now. And we worked so hard on that record for a year, and I finally just released it. And during COVID, I did a panel kind of series talk called Dream Series, where I interviewed a bunch of people who I've crossed paths with in my life, including Karsh Kale, Madam Gandhi, Pratik Kuhad, Sid Sriram, just so many friends of mine, and we all talked about dreams. So that just
That's amazing.
happened. Yeah, it was really cool. It was just this whole series talking about dreams and how everyone chase them, because that's how I felt my life has been, and I wanted to know from them how was it for them chasing their dream. And so yeah, that was incredible. That just all happened. So now that that's over, now that the Bad Girls Dream world is over, I am working on the next record called The Pattern, and trying to just, you know, make music as best as possible in the current global situation.
Wow. Did you just say that in one breath? I think you just almost said the whole thing in one breath. That was quite
Trying to make as much music as possible in this situation and see what's next.
nice.
You know, I think
Yeah,
the entire music industry right now is on
definitely.
such a hiatus. Like we don't know what's going to happen.
Right,
So
exactly.
all you can do as a creative is make music right now, and try to
Exactly.
see something,
Yep.
you know, put it on.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yes, so good luck with all of that. And once again, thanks for sharing your story with us. We're gonna, I think some of those things you said, we want to bring them back with when we all have, you know, more ideas to discuss amongst the group. So thanks once again, Zoya.
Thank
Yeah, and
you.
even I have a question that I can pick your brain later about it, which is like right after, you know, graduating or understanding a very structured approach to the music industry, when you came to India, how was it navigating here? I think I would
Whoa.
love to hear your
That's,
thoughts on
yeah,
that.
very good point.
And of
Yeah,
course,
that's cool.
later, more on a personal level, what were you singing at those Indian parties in LA when you were a kid? That is off the record.
Okay, I'll think about this then.
He gave you food for thought. All
Yeah,
right. Thanks, Zoya.
thank you.
Okay, now we can move on to somebody who's doing some absolutely fantastic work with folk music. We just had a quick chat about what all he's doing, and he was trying to explain to us what is folk music. So please welcome Abhinav. Hi, Abhinav.
I'll tell.
I think it'll be good for us to, you know, for you to define folk music, because you know, that's like one of the main areas you work with. And it was
Yeah,
so great when Amira and you were talking earlier, and we were sort of having a quick chat about that. So,
yeah. It's a very good topic to start with, because nobody, you won't find anywhere on the internet a true definition of folk music.
right.
Even in the ethnomusicology, every researcher comes up with their own definition. See, earlier, like 3-4 years back, I also believe that folk music is very traditional and ethnic in nature.
Hmm.
And these are like really old songs which tell us about the culture. So I started documenting in Rajasthan. But say 2 years back, my definition about the folk music really changed. I started working in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand. And when I started documenting folk music over there, all the music was very contemporary in nature. Like the artists were singing songs how to save their river, how not to pollute their environment, how to empower girls, and all these songs were not ethnic in nature. Like they were addressing
Hmm.
their contemporary problems, and that's the like just 2 years back, the definition for folk music really changed for me, and I realized that folk music doesn't need to be ethnic or traditional in nature. It's just one component of the entire folk music. Folk music, in reality, you can say, is a music that addresses the problems or happiness of the society. It brings
Right.
people together and is used as a collective tool of communication to address a message of a community. And like when I was young, I started from Hindustani classical music, And see, classical music in different parts of the country is learned through different mediums. Like for
Right.
example, if I'm in Lucknow or Allahabad, I'll start with Chota Khyal, like Khyals. If I am
Mm.
in MP and Central India, I'll start through Drupad. If I am in South India, I learned through bhajans. Okay, I come from UP West, and there I learned my classical music through folk songs. So
Okay.
different
Okay.
folk songs that I was learning was in different ragas, and they were like demonstrating different emotions, and that's how like my journey started with folk music and classical.
That's beautiful. And you also studied tabla?
Yeah. So I started with tabla. I started really young when I was 6 years of age, and that time of uh, television advertisement used to come, like Zakir Hussain, Wahataj. So I was very fascinated with that thing, and I asked my mother that I want to play those things. And then she found a teacher, and then I started learning tabla. So I started from tabla. Then after 1 year, I went into vocals.
That's amazing. Wow. And I think that sort of, created, like, as you said, like your training in folk music and your association and all that, that sort of built that relationship with those forms, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then how did Berkeley come into the picture? You wanted to go study music business?
No. So Berkeley was like even before that. What happened? Like when I started learning classical and folk music, I realized something that everyone around me, like all my teachers, all my gurus, they had a dream of recording their own music, not because it
Mm.
brings some money or royalties, but because recording music gives a kind of prestige and identity. Like we have our own
Mm.
cassettes and
Record.
CDs,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
everybody wanted to record, but nobody in my community had enough money to go to a studio and do a recording. So it was just a dream, and like I kind of grew up with this dream, and something was inside me that one day when I'll grow up, I'll design studios which will be free of cost for the artists so that they can have their own identity. So, like
Beautiful.
I registered my own organization, like a charity NGO, when I was in first year of my college. So I started, like I did my graduation in architecture, and
Right.
when I registered like this organization, so it was a painful process to register a
Mm.
charity at that point of time. And meanwhile, when I was registering, what I used to do, like I used to have a Apple laptop, a simple sound card with two inputs. And my college was in the central part of the country, Bhopal, where like normally all the trains they pass through Bhopal. So I used to catch up any random train on weekend with my sound card, with my laptop. Used to land up anywhere. Used to like then record the artist, and every artist I used to record, I used to burn a CD and give it back to them. So a tradition started that artists, they started calling me back that brother,
That's
the
so cool.
CD that you recorded for me, I sold it for rupees 20 or rupees 30. Can you make more copies of that thing? So this this thing grew, and I started touring a lot more, and this became like a project. So and meanwhile, when I was registering my own organization, Anand, I realized that I am an artist. I am not a businessman, and I cannot run it. So I need to do an MBA. I need to run, like I need to do a proper MBA. So I started like preparing for business schools. I started preparing for GMAT. And then that was a time like when I was in third year, Berkeley announced a music business degree in Valencia, and I kind of applied over there. So in my interview, I told the director very clearly that uh, if you don't give me a really good scholarship, I won't be able to join. I want to do this project as my full-time thesis over there. So I got a good
Wow.
scholarship over there, and my entire 1.5 years of masters, I kind of designed my entire business plan and how to do this social entrepreneurship project in India.
This is incredible. This is so incredible. Congratulations on all the work. I mean, this really takes a lot of time, energy, and pushing it on so many fronts. So really, you're doing something absolutely fantastic. I'll just post your link of your website over here for everybody to see if they wanna please go and check this out, everybody. This is like some fantastic work. And what are you doing now? Please tell us what, you have some things in the pipeline. I think you're doing a fundraiser as well. So if you'd like to
Yeah,
share
yeah.
what is happening
So
now.
I'll tell you like what we exactly do. So we opened a wonderful studio in New Delhi, and I started calling up all the artists to come over there and record. That was while I was there in Berkeley. So that was a prototype that I had created, and you won't believe not a single artist turned up. So entire project flopped like anything. Okay, artists started telling me that why should we come so far to Delhi? Who will take care of our families, and would you pay us? So it was quite a very depressing kind of thing, and I started brainstorming a lot, and I started like traveling again with my sound card and doing recordings. That point of time, I realized if artists can't come to the studio, why can't we design a studio that can go to the artist? Okay. So I wrote to Gail Heading, who is currently the director of Berklee in Abu Dhabi. So he was sitting in a Grammy ceremony, in his second Grammy ceremony, and he wrote back to me that, dude, see, I just won a Grammy, and just text me, uh, I'll come to India. So I was quite shocked. He came to India. He stayed with us for 3 months, and we designed a portable studio recording like solution, a hardware which operates on battery power, on lithium-ion battery. On a single charge, you can record for 3 days, and it's a 12-track multi-track solution, entirely wireless. So we trademarked that thing as Backpack Studio. So we started traveling with that Backpack Studio to every village to village. We used to set up and used to record like 2 music videos for every artist. And every artist that we were recording, we were creating independent websites for them. So this is the primary project that we do. And the upcoming thing is that we have designed a new kind of a studio, which is called Briefcase Studio. And it's a community studio project. So by next 2 years, we are planning to open 200 community studios all over around the country in tribal locations. And we are starting a 15 to a 1 month course to train the artists themselves in the communities how to record music and how to distribute it.
Amazing. Wow, congrats once again, man, and thank you for sharing all the information about this. And I've plugged the website here so people can check it out, and we'd love to hear more about it when we have our discussion later. Thank you, Abhinav. And Vasudha, how are you doing?
Very good. And after hearing what Abhinav has been doing, I mean, it just, I feel so happy. Yeah. It's such wonderful things. And it's just like doing it for the community and for people who can't really do it for themselves. They don't have access to things. And I think it's brilliant, Abhinav. Like, hats off to you. Big
Really,
applause.
Thanks, Vasudha.
Yes.
So Vasudha, how about you? So you grew up in Delhi, right?
No, in fact, I was born in a very small town in Haryana. It's called Bhiwani. So a small town girl. And I shifted to Delhi when I finished, I was till my boards till 10th, I was in Bhiwani. And I shifted to Delhi because my parents thought, oh, she needs more opportunities in life and
Wow.
she sings and let's, give her more exposure and stuff because there's hardly anything in Bhiwani that time. And Delhi, the minute I landed in Delhi and I went to St. Thomas's, in fact, I went to Ramjas school the first time and I had opted for science because I was supposedly doing well in my boards and I should have had science and I should have been an engineer and all of that. I got a culture shock of my life because the thing is that when you're coming from a sort of a place where you have known every single person from nursery till the 10th standard and you're in a cocoon, you're in a small place where everyone knows you, you're getting all the attention, you're singing and blah blah blah, blah, all that is happening for you. Suddenly you go to a place where there are like so many more people and the way they interact with each other is very different from where I was coming from. To be honest, I mean, I inherited my dad's genes, so my eyebrows were like so thick and I didn't even get them done. So I went to school and I got a shock of my life because everyone was like looking at me as if I some person from another planet. But it took me a while to kind of get used to things, and eventually I told my mother that science is not something that I really want to go for. I want arts. And that was the reason. I mean, she found me another school, which was a girls' school, St. Thomas's School in Mandirmarg, and there I just kind of found my place. It took me a few months, to be very honest, because where I was coming from, of course, there were not many opportunities. There wasn't enough exposure, and my parents thought that this would be right for her. It might take a while, but eventually she'll find her way. I think that's when things started, rolling, and I got into Gandhar Mahavidyalaya. I was taking classes of Hindustani music. Before that, I mean, my childhood has always been folk songs, as Abhinav rightly said. Even I'm from Mathura, so my aunt, my bua, used to teach me all Krishna bhajans, and that's
Okay.
how I've understood even ragas and sargams and everything. And I never got, I mean, I never got a non. I mean, I never got a regular training in Hindustani classical. Like I joined something and then I shifted to
Hmm.
Delhi, and then when I started Gandhar Mahavidyalaya in Delhi, I shifted to Mumbai through Asma and Kokvi Pop Stars. And so, things kind of kept on happening in my life. From Bhiwani, I went to Delhi, from Delhi to Mumbai, from Mumbai to Boston, and back to Mumbai. I mean, that's how even Berklee happened, for that matter. Because the minute I felt like instinctively there was a better opportunity for me, uh, it all conspired together, and somehow I kind of got to the next stage. And that's how even Berklee happened, because I was it was great. I mean, I know you're going to come to Asma and the whole thing with Asma, how
It's up to
I got
you. I mean,
selected.
it's up to-
No, I mean, I'm saying that it was a great opportunity, and I think my entry into the music industry in a professional way, because otherwise I think I would have never gotten into music, for that matter. I would
Hmm.
have been sitting in a government office, behind a desk. I would have been an IS officer, as my mother clearly wanted at that time. She wanted me to pursue civil services, and but somehow, this whole talent hunt that was happening, it was very intriguing. And singing and composing was something that I used to do right from childhood. Like my Hindi teacher used to write poems, and I used to take his poems and compose, like make tunes out of it, and
Wow.
sing in competition. So even if I didn't know any instrument, I knew the harmonium, of course, but that was nothing as compared to like the guitar that I picked up much later. And it was just like four chords I would know, but I'd sing all Alanis songs in competitions and win those I mean, it was one thing led to the other. And I would say that composing and singing and learning music has been an integral part of me right since childhood. It started with folk songs, then in college, because of I was in Hindu college in Delhi, because of my exposure to all these seniors in music who were telling me, "Arey, you don't know Alanis Morissette? Come on, all you listen to is Backstreet Boys. Come on, we'll make you listen to some." So they would introduce me to some really good songwriting and singer songwriters, and suddenly my whole mind of just like the whole perspective about music changed. And it was still very limited. So I was still learning and learning new things that were given to me on a platter, and I was learning and going to the next stage until Asma happened. And that's when I realized that, okay, this has happened to me in my life. I don't know if I want to really pursue music. Even after getting selected in Asma, I wasn't really sure that music is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Okay.
That was something that happened a little later. I mean, Asma was formed in 2003. It was all glitz and glamorous stuff.
Hmm.
We had makeovers, and we were dancing in our music videos, and there were some really fun Chandu Ke Chacha and that sort of songs created for us. We never wrote those songs. So as an opportunity, it was great. We were spoon fed, of course, but the creative expression of you as an artist wasn't really fulfilled there. And I always wanted to kind of figure out a way to be able to do that, because definitely it was giving us returns in terms of live gigs. We were earning shitloads of money. We had the fame. We had, we were doing all sort of gigs abroad and in India as well. But as an artist and as a musician, I felt like I'm saturated completely with what is happening
Interesting.
around me, and I kind of need to push my boundaries further. Somehow, again, I say that I do believe that it's all conspired, that it was God sent. An opportunity for Berklee came, and I was like, to hell with all the money and the gigs that I'm doing here. I don't care. I'm going to be a student, even if it's for a while, because I never had the intention of graduating from Berklee right from the beginning. I said, okay, we'll see how it goes, how I feel, being there. And I went for it. And I think spending that year and a half there with just being a student, because I was so much used to earning lots of money by doing gigs, and as a student all you're doing is spending, especially in a place like Boston.
Yeah.
And well, when that happened, I still felt that I'm gaining more than I'm losing, because that whole exposure and meeting musicians from all across the globe, and meeting some wonderful professors, and getting the insight, getting to being a part of all these different Balkan ensemble, or I mean all different kinds which I was never exposed to before. I think that itself was a great learning experience, and networking with musicians from someone from another corner of the world was mind-boggling for me to be able to interact and chat and chill with them. So I think when that happened and I got back, I knew that I wanted to just create my own music, because I'd written some of the songs there as well, and I collaborated with musicians there. I hired a studio for 12 hours non-stop, and we just recorded 4 songs at a stretch with all the musicians there. I got back. I was this I was this girl with big dreams, with no money in my pocket, absolutely no money, but I wanted to put out this album. That's when crowdfunding happened, and so the Wishberry campaign, and because I had the motivation to kind of go about doing things. I'm a very I'm not a very aggressive social media person, but when this happened and I knew that this is what I want to do, and I want to create this album and I want to put it out, the crowdfunding campaign, I was like bombarding it on everyone's wall, left, right, and center, and I was able to get that 5 lakh amount for my album, which was a big deal at that time, a crowdfunding. So it was all a conspiracy, I feel, for me to kind of get into the independent scene and realize that, listen, there is no looking back. Like, you're not going back to your regular life. Music is what you need to do. So I think I've told you the whole story of
That's amazing. No,
how it
that's great.
started.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's very valuable for everybody to understand, because we when we hear about how things work for people, sometimes we just feel, oh, everything just sort of lined up for them, but everybody struggles so much on so many steps, and there's so many sort of things that you have to navigate, and that's one of the things that's part of this panel, that how do you navigate these changing landscapes, because the industry shifts, things change, your personal lives change,
Right.
where you are, that changes. So there's a lot that we have to deal with as artists and creators. So thank you for sharing that. And, we look forward to your new releases and the work you're doing with your band as well.
Yes, Sharma and the Besharams.
Nice. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Vasudha. Okay. Now we have Amira, who is a music therapist, songwriter, and vocalist. I mean, being a music therapist, I mean, this is something that's quite uncommon in India. I mean, I think it's still there, but maybe you can enlighten us that, I think we don't hear that so much, and I really want to dig into that a little bit more with you, Amira, and what it is like to be in this field of music therapy.
Having me. This field is definitely super new. I
Right.
think everywhere. It's still a niche field even in the US, and it's a lot more in the US, but it's still people. When I go, when I was there, you'd go in cabs and you'd interact with people, and they'd be like, "What is music therapy? What is
Hmm.
it exactly?" And yeah, it's still something that's developing. And in India, there are forms of it. There's music therapy with classical music. So a lot of music therapists who are doing Indian classical music, and it's completely different in terms of what I do, because I have been trained in the American music therapy format.
Right.
And there's only one other music therapist with whom I'm staying actually, Purva Sampath, who started her own music therapy program here called Maya's Universe. And so the music therapy that we do has been taught in a format which is like, you serve different populations, you understand how music works to reach those goals, and you're basically working on non-musical goals using music. What's different for me after Berklee and everything was that I sort of wanted to get out of that taught method, because I wanted to evaluate what does music therapy mean for me. It's not a very traditional thing of I want to working with autism or working with people with disability. All of that's part of it, sure. But for me, it was more like, what is my individual expression? And even though it's niche, I think music can be inserted in any sphere that it has place for. And I realized that for me, it's definitely to do with storytelling, and it's to do with expression, and it's to do with being able to connect to yourself and being able to connect within a community in whatever context that is. And that it's not country specific, it's not person specific, it can be introduced anywhere. It can, because music is as cliche as it sounds, it's like the global language. So so that's where I'm at right now with the music therapy experience. It's been interesting to see how people respond in India when you tell them about it, and it's very esoteric for them still. Even for when I explain to my parents, because they say, okay, you have the neurologic music therapy piece, which I did, which is understanding how the brain works and having a very research-oriented approach to it, which it is. It has a lot of amazing, mind-boggling research around it. But for me, it's more interpersonal. I want to encourage that more community, because we're musicians also. You go into a jam room, you make music with people where you're going without any intention of doing that. Like you're not going into the structure, you're not going in with anything, you're sitting together, these different pieces that come together, and what you create is something magical, right? It's like completely not anything you could have anticipated. And what is that at the end of the day? It's like breaking ice, it's making something beautiful. And I think that you can call it music therapy if you want. Of course, it's going to be practiced by someone who's trained in it, but that's a completely different side of it from what people assume it is. It doesn't always have to be medical. It doesn't always have to be cerebral in nature. It can be something very feeling. So yeah, hoping to introduce more of that.
Wow. Talking about a global context, please tell us about your work in Kenya and Uganda. You said you've worked there. How was that like?
Yeah, this is also a crazy thing. So I was at Berklee, and I remember my last semester, I was doing this professional development seminar, and there you had to create something like your idea of what it means to be a music therapist, and what if you had all the money in the world, by funders, of course, it doesn't magically come. What would you do? What would you do with this money? And I wanted to create something called the traveling music therapy organization, if you may. And I wanted it to be something where you take the music that you've learned to different places in the world and learn from them, to be an exchange. Because when I entered Berklee, similar to what Vasudha said, you get exposed to so much music from across the globe. And I just connected to so many different kinds of music, and it just became ingrained in me. I didn't think I was separate from it. It didn't feel like this is the first time I'm listening to it. It just felt like an immediate connection. And then I wanted to explore more and more and more and more. And so I said, if music therapy can be used in a global context with different communities, I would love to travel the world. I mean, learn music from everywhere, especially certain countries. And I was talking, I love African rhythms, and I'm so bowled over by Middle Eastern melodies. So I said, if I had a chance to go to all these countries, that would be just incredible. I ended up doing my internship in LA in the UCLA Children's Hospital, and my supervisor was just the most amazing human being. she was part of this organization called Umoja Global, which is a community music therapy organization that travels to East Africa every year, twice a year. And she said, you know what, I've never taken my interns with me, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to come. So I said, are you kidding? This
Amazing.
is exactly what I want to do. So yeah, I'm on board, whatever you want, whenever you want. And I was not even planning to go to LA at all, actually. I said, you know, I want to stay in Boston because I'm also, apart from music therapy, the artistry part of it is so strong in me. I don't want to lose the
Right.
musical community that I have already here, and I'll have to rebuild it in LA, and I want to still write my own music and blah, blah. But then I thought about it and I said, listen, I really miss the sun. I don't want to be in this cold anymore. Maybe I should just give it a shot. So then I went, and she was the perfect person. So we went to um, Kenya. I couldn't go for the Uganda part of it. And we worked with women and children. The focus of it was to work with underrepresented members of the community, and
Okay.
especially women and children who have been ostracized from their own families, subject to sexual, physical abuse, kids who don't have any community because they're grown up in slums. And so we went to really like different spaces. There was SHOFCO, which is the organization that combats urban poverty and gender equality in slum communities. And then there was the Nest, which has these little kids who are orphans and their moms have been imprisoned, and you know they had to give birth in prison and they didn't have families. So you have all of these people, you have these musicians. This community, this organization didn't have only music therapists. You also have social workers. You have people who have done child life, who are child life specialists, and also people of Kenya itself who've been a part of that community, who come together and you know serve these people. So it was honestly just a space for exchanging what they have been through and the kind of stories that you hear. This is what I mean. Like the stories element was so strong for me because they shared these stories, which honestly it seems like a very common thing to have an opportunity to share your story, but these women just didn't. It was considered
Mm.
taboo with the experiences that they've had. Um, they didn't necessarily have people who wanted to listen to what they had to say. So when you go in and you have create these safe spaces where anything they say is valid and is um, accepted and is a place where they can connect to other people, also other women specifically who've been through that, it's just really uplifting. And then obviously we did music and they wrote incredible songs, and they shared really deep, intimate things that they had been through, and they shared how they're learning to gain skills in becoming financially independent, in creating their own communal systems, doing work for other kids, you know, in their communities, young girls who don't feel like they have an option out of these horrible traumatic experiences that they have been through. So yeah, it was a whole range of things, but that'll take like an hour
Wow.
to explain in a
Yeah, I
minute.
would love to hear more about it. Sounds totally fascinating. And as I said, music therapy is a field which a lot more of us need to know about. And hopefully, we can, if you have any links or anything you can share with, all
Yeah,
those attendees here, you can just post it over here and then,
sure.
they can check that out. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And also good luck with all the music things you're doing. I loved your new song, Black Coffee. We were listening to it
Thank
today. It
you.
sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Congrats.
all my again, all the friends from across the globe are also part of the
Nice.
song, which is nice. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. So, wow, such amazing stories. Tarun, would you like to share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, again, it's really inspiring to hear from all the lovely artists that are on the panel at the moment. And I think what I'll do is probably keep it really brief, and maybe we can then take some questions and have, a more engaging dialogue between all of us, because I'm
That'd be
actually dying
awesome.
to talk to all of you.
Go
But
for it, man.
yeah, but very briefly, I mean, I think you are aware of this because obviously we grew up together, and I also started playing in your band, and we went to Berklee together, and we started our musical journeys together.
Mm.
But I think more recently, and like as Amira said, I think uh, I have been identifying myself more as a sonic storyteller, and using the medium of sound and composition, and through my two musical outputs. One is my quartet Dharma, and the other one more recently being seasonal affected beats, which is improvised electronic music. So I really had this epiphany where I don't really want to battle or try to get a title of a jazz musician or a composer or a performer. I actually just want to tell stories through sound, and that's what I'm really trying to do. Some of them are my personal stories and journeys that are inward, and then they find an artistic output that I can share with the world, or with seasonal affected beats where I'm actually borrowing a lot of experiences that I'm hearing, experiencing myself and living through. So for example, with seasonal affected beats, a lot of these stories are via mental health or climate change. So my I think I've had this utmost clarity in my artistic vision very recently, and of course I'm quite sure it's going to change in the next couple of years, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that you got to shed skin and you got to be in uncomfortable situations to be able to grow as an artist. But just to backtrack a little bit, and my love for improvised music started when I was 18. I was privileged enough to go to New York to study at Drummers Collective. And you remember, after pestering our parents that please allow me to go to New York, and they were like, what are you going to do in New York for 3 months? And I was like, I just want to go to this music school. I can't learn in India. There are no teachers. And I finally land up there. And my first concert is watching the legendary Roy Haynes lead his quintet at the Village Vanguard. And I'm just obviously blown away by that experience, because I'm just like, here's a drummer who's not only composing and writing for his band, he's also leading his band, and of course, having a successful career. And I think that was the point where I was like, okay, I think this is exactly what I want to do. I want to be a drummer. I want to write for my band, and then I want to hopefully tour with my group. And that led to several, steps further, where I auditioned for Berklee. We got a scholarship. We landed up at Berklee, and that's the trajectory that I had with improvised and jazz music. But then I think what was the most challenging part for me as a student at Berklee was to, find that identity of coming from Southeast Asia, or more specifically from India, and then relating to the art form that is very unique to African American culture and Black culture. And but I was very fortunate, and that's the thing about Berklee College of Music, that you have teachers like Ralph Peterson Jr. or Taylor Carrington, and you can really engage with them. And whilst they are also kicking your butt, but they will also really, shower you with like all the time and love that they have to really educate you on this, this art form, which is, it's going to probably take me my entire lifetime and much more to really unravel. And as after my graduation, folks were like, you want to be a jazz cat, you move to New York. And I think at that point in time also was a very difficult decision for me to be like, well, I'm actually not going to move to New York, because number one, I don't think I'm going to survive. I've not got the chops at all to do that. And I felt like when I was graduating from Berklee, I felt like that was the time when I was ready to go to Berklee. That would be the time where I would go and play with Joe Lovano's ensemble, or do another year at the Global Jazz Institute, So, and I think if I go to Berklee even now, I would probably easily happily spend three more years at because Berklee is such, it's just an infinite pool of knowledge, experience, and peer mentorship and engagement. So that's the kind of place Berklee is. And doing my first record right after school in 2012, which obviously features you, Adi, and a Berklee professor, Bruno Rehberg, who is a phenomenal composer and arranger, and a professor at Berklee, and Sohail Yusuf Khan on Sarangi, and of course, my longtime friend and bandmate Sharik. So I think that was, whilst it was an extremely challenging process to put a debut record right after school, which quote unquote is a jazz record from a jazz artist from India, I think whilst it was almost an impossible feat to accomplish, getting reviews with Vijay Iyer on, and getting played on the New York Public Radio, and getting a tour in Italy in 2013. I think those were those stepping stones which really led me to believe that I could do this. And fast forwarding to situations like 2015 and 16, where I was actually getting to play at the Jazz Gallery in New York, which is a very prestigious venue. Some of the musicians that who have actually lived and been in New York have also not had the opportunity to play there, and so on and so forth. So just stepping forward, I think, being an improviser, you just have to constantly work on your craft day after day, and being able to cut records, and more recently signing to Berthold Records, and having the opportunity to tour in Europe and play music and record albums in this day and age. So I feel like quite privileged to be able to do that. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for sharing that, man. Thank you. Jason, would you like to stir the pot now and give us some questions or some ideas to get the ball rolling?
It's really incredible to hear all of your stories and to see what you've accomplished. Having had the opportunity through Adi and Tarun to connect with the music of India and to help engage and connect with young artists over the past decade has been hugely informative for myself and many of us in the Berklee community. So we are deeply indebted to Global Music Institute and Adi and Tarun and all of the alums over the years. But your stories and your trajectories are all unique and incredibly inspiring. There's a lot of great questions that came in, but I'd like to start maybe in the here and now, because the world, as we are all experiencing it, is tumultuous, more so than ever before. And as creative people, as entrepreneurs, as people that are constantly on the journey searching, I just wonder, and this is for all of you, anybody that wants to jump in and answer this, if you could talk a little bit, because I'm sure many of the people that are checking this session out are going to be interested in this. This is multi-leveled. How do you take care of your artistry? How do you take care of your spirit, as human beings? And, what are you doing to, find the new way forward as the world of engagement is changing? As you're at the vanguard of the community of artists, from the tradition, from India, and from, bringing the music to the world. But, could anybody want to jump in and just talk about, like, how do you get up and go at it every day and do what you do, whether it's as an entrepreneur, as a therapist, as an educator, as an artist, as a creator? What is it that motivates you, that drives you? And what is it that you would share to some of these people that are on the Zoom today, and to just help them kind of find their way forward?
Oh, that's a great question, man. Wow.
Anybody want to jump in? I know it's a deep pot to stir, but this is an important one, I think, for a lot. Go ahead, Zoya, please.
I don't know. I think it's interesting because this whole time the world was semi-ending. I was in this deep, complex, I just came out of this record where I was talking about my dream and all the things that I had to do to get myself here. And every single song on that record was going through all of the crazy phases that comes with following your dream. But when I spoke to so many people over the past 3 months when I was doing the Dream series, what I realized was everyone has their own way of some type of motivation, some type of thing that's getting you up in the morning. And sometimes I think the dreaming part of it stops when you start to work at it and when you start to get success, because then you're trying to make money for it, and then your dream becomes your job. And I think right now, obviously, the world is in a totally different position than it was a year ago. But I think as creatives, all you can do is figure out what is your dream. Like that. Even when I did the music business songwriting thing with you, Aditya, at Global Music Institute, I asked every student that if you have a dream, what is it? You need to be brutally honest with yourself about what that dream is before you chase it, because otherwise you don't know what you're even chasing. So if your dream is to be Katy Perry, or your dream is to, just make really crazy, weird experimental jazz music in a bar in New York, it's, what is your dream? And then you need to go chase that. And so I think the first step before talking about what gets you up in the morning, it's like defining what it is that you actually want first. Like that's kind of what I think. That's it.
That's great. Yeah. Who else? Vasuda, I mean, Amir, Abhinav, Tarun, jump in here because this is a really interesting thing. Go ahead. You can just unmute and jump in. This is a
Yeah,
total
go
free
for it.
form
Yeah,
here.
let's.
Yeah, for me, it was like I love performing music, but more than performing music, I love how the produced music sounds on earphones or headphones. Like for me, the production aspect of the thing is like really beautiful, like listening to music in a stereo. And that's the kind of like right now while I'm doing this backpack studio thing and recording the artists, of course I don't get much time to listen to new music or even Spotify. But whenever I record music, there was one incident, like it often happens whenever I record music, and when artists they ask me that brother, can you just give us a demo, can we hear back what we just played? Okay. And when I put the headphones or monitors to their head, they start crying. Many
Mm,
times it has happened. And they tell me that we never knew that our voice sounds so good on like microphone. It's for the first time I'm hearing my voice back from my mic. And now I have confidence that my voice can compete in Bollywood, or like I am equally good like other singers. So when I uh, like hear these blessings, these how the uh, artist is empowered through a microphone, this thing like really keeps me going.
I love
Beautiful.
that. I love that aha moment. I mean, I know we all have experienced this, whether it's with our colleagues when or you're on stage or in the studio, or whether you're teaching, that moment when you see that light go off in somebody's face and they just like it's you know what's happening. That's incredible to hear. Thanks for sharing that. Who else, other ways that maybe the way you take care of yourself now, because like I don't know about many of you here. I've been literally, we were talking about this before the Zoom. I've been in this room for every day for 6 months now. It's totally cool. I mean, this is all right, but it's very different from being out and connecting and hanging with musicians and playing shows and doing sessions. But how do all of you sort of like, just keep your spirit up, keep yourself creative?
I mean, I can quickly jump. Oh no, I mean, I go for it.
No, Tarun, go for it, Tarun.
Oh, okay. This is the no. I mean, I think that you've definitely asked like a very very deep question, like ranging from what is motivating each one of us, but then also how we are taking art forms forward. I mean, I think at the base of it, both what Zoya said and what Abhinav said, I think it's it's somewhat that mysticism of sound that we're all seeking, that we can never really answer what that is. What is this mystery with this, and there's a great um, uh, ex-professor at Berklee, Jamie Haddad, who introduced me to the book of Hazrat Inayat Khan Sahab. And if you read that text, you start to really explore what is this mystery with sound and the human spirit and us as individuals. So whether you hear a recording on headphones or you go out there and perform, whether like Zoya said, whether it's crazy improvised music in a jazz club or playing for thousands of people on stage, I think there's just something about we all trying to seek this mystery and unravel this mystery of sound. Something about what keeps me motivated and going is and this lockdown was definitely a true test, whether when you have no gigs lined up, you made a record last year that's going to come out, okay fine, I'll carry you forward for maybe 6 more months, and then it's complete, like a black hole, like you have no idea how the industry is going to erect itself back. But I think those were the moments where I realized that I have this relationship with this art form that I really truly hope that stays and lasts the rest of my life, where I probably want to be practicing drums, trumpet, and writing music, till the last day, So and that is what really keeps me going, like because I feel like the gigs, getting paid for the gigs, and having your music being heard across the world, I think those are just like, for me, they are the icing on the cake. But for me to just develop my relationship with this art form every day is almost like a mirror and a reflection to who I am. And I think that quest hopefully just never ends. And I just, continue to move forward. That's probably my take on it.
Cool. Amira, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually going to say a lot of stuff, but then I'm going to contain it. Uh, this year has been such a weird year because it was supposed to start off with a completely different thing. I was supposed to go back to the US, uh, you know, a bunch of stuff. And then the lockdown happened a day before my flight out. And, things have just turned around in the most, um, not to put it subtly at all, irritating, upsetting ways. And I think I'm not alone in feeling this because you can have amazing times during this quarantine and have a lot of uh, things that come back to you. You realize a lot of things about yourself, about your artistry, but then you can't ignore that it can also be super debilitating. And so initially, although it was a lot of that, uh, this period also sent me back to why did I ever start this, and why did I even get into the music? And such amazing reflections, even though I find it so cliche. When you There's mysticism there, it exists because you don't realize how things just pan out, or how what it's going to be like, and somehow it starts making a little bit of sense. I was having a conversation with my grandma, and she said to me when I was questioning a lot of things, she said, you were 10 or 11 when you became so crazy about singing, and even though you sounded terrible on some days and your brother just wanted you out of the room, you wouldn't stop. And what is that like? How is that seed been placed in you? Because none of us are musicians and none of us wanted to do this. Also, the kind of music you chose to sing Beyonce and Aretha Franklin and Leona Lewis when you were 13 years old. Where did you realize, where did you even get exposed to this music? And it's that soul, and because of that connection, this period has been like opening me to different musicians and making me realize the kind of musician I want to be. I started listening to this incredible Spanish singer Silvia Perez Cruz, and hearing her music, it just brought me back to what I want to be, and it was just the most earthy music. She's um, she's uninhibited when she sings. She is making music with people all over. She's having these complex arrangements which are not actually that complex. It's very meaty and colorful, and it's still her truth. It's truthful, it's storytelling. She's taking poetry, she's adding music to that, um, and she's doing a bunch of amazing stuff like that, and multiple artists like that. So for me, the thing that has been keeping me going has been telling myself that even if that light at the end of the tunnel is not very clear or is there at all, just remember why did you start this, and just keep going back to that space to gain energy out of that, to create. And it's working. It's working a bit. I wrote
That's
more
really,
music in this period than I have in a while. So.
that's really incredible that you're sharing that, because it really connects to what Abhinav is working on, which is this idea of it's the genuine story. It's being truthful and honest and sharing the story, which is about the community, about life. And that's really powerful. I think it connects to a lot of what all of you are sharing. One of the things that I think would be really helpful, because there's probably a lot of younger musicians and artists that are connected to this, is I think every one of you has hit walls in your career, whether it's in your training as an artist, or just those moments where you've found insurmountable challenge with trying to figure out a way to go forward. And I'm just wondering, can anybody share like some of the challenges that you've confronted as an artist, or in the work that you're doing, and then just sort of like the approach that you took to either get through them or get around them? Maybe how you did it, if it was something that you did on your own or you had to do, in collaboration with people, because all of you have varying levels of success with all of your work. But I think, how do you keep from being defeated on your path to, the goal that you're trying to hit? Does anybody want to jump in here and talk about that?
you just keep being defeated. Don't think it's going to end. I think that's important to
Oh,
mention.
wow.
It's important. It's
Stay
important to say,
negative.
like, it's not going to be like, okay, I got this and now it's going to be great after this. It's just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
It's not like linear. It's always going to be cyclical, you know. It's always going to be spiral. So that's my 2 bit for this.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, great question, because I think like especially in today's age, you know, when young artists just scroll through Instagram, where there's like a 15-second drummer's clip just blazing through chops, or a singer, you just open the Instagram page and they're just like belting out this amazing R&B lick. You know, it's very important to understand and also acknowledge the challenges that we face as artists.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fantastic question to bring up. And I think maybe Adi, you can join in here, like mainly from our journey. Like number one, you know, just thinking about setting up a music institution in India. I think if I and I said this on the panel, on the last panel, that if I look back at my 24-year-old self, I would never think about doing it again. But I'm so glad that we did it, because you know, today is possible, and hopefully we are able to impact many young musicians in India and in Southeast Asia. And similarly in my career in music as well, like I feel the biggest hurdle I faced was, I think, in 2013, where I purposely decided not to move to New York, but then also I had no sort of global standing as a jazz artist or an improviser. And I think the music industry is sort of structured in a way for each genre very specifically. And I think to be able to break through that is very important. And I think the way to do it is probably to sort of really in some ways think out of the box. Because first I thought that there's only one pathway, you know, like for example, that's in my context, it's just like, if you want to be a successful jazz artist, you go to New York, you spend a decade there, you struggle, you play wedding gigs, then you play at clubs, and and then that's the path. And I often had this argument with Sharik, where I was say, I'm actually not going to move to New York, because I know it's going to actually deplete all, of course, my resources, but also my emotional resources, which I really need to write music for. And I think at that point in time, I really embraced the fact that I was a jazz artist from India. And when I started to reach out to record labels and agents, and I actually used this to my advantage, saying that I actually live in India, despite the fact, even till date, it's very hard for those folks to sort of recognize that. So you live in India and your band is in New York, but you want to tour in Europe. And I'm just like, yeah, I did that. I did that last year. I did that the year before, and I did that the year before. So yes, this is what I do. And I think once they see that somewhat confidence in you, or that you've been able to do it, and I think for me to embrace that I am a jazz artist from India, or an improviser from India, and I think that really flipped, you know, and was a stepping stone for multiple opportunities that came my way, rather than trying to sort of fit this box of atypical musician. And I think so, if you find yourself in that position where you are being forced to you know, fit the box, I would really highly recommend that whilst you may want to have some of those being tick marked, just break it, like go think outside of the box, because that's the only way you know, to be uncomfortable and to really find your own path. So that's how I sort of overcame that little
Definitely. Yeah, and I think just to add to that, you know, as we've sort of seen with everybody's stories here, you know, everybody has struggles, everybody has points where you almost break down and you just question everything. And a lot of times, obviously, in our bios, we only highlight our successes. You know, we can't talk about our failures, right? We say, "Oh yeah, I did this, I did that," and that's like maybe what 20% of what I can show. But the 80% of it is every time we've been rejected, every time we've, like Abhinav said, you know, he had this massive idea and it just bombed. You know, but it's a beautiful idea, and then like how, you get crushed because you put everything into it. You know, you believe in it, you have other people who believe in it, but then suddenly it just doesn't work. And then Jason, that was a great question. How do you get up the next morning and see, okay, what do I do now, or do I do it again, or like what do I do, you know? And then again, going back to the idea of molds, we always have these ideas. Oh, this is a Bollywood singer, this is a R&B singer, this is a jazz artist, these are these paths, what Tarun said. And a lot of times what happens is that we force ourselves to fit into those molds. And we've seen with everybody, even Zoya, when this whole idea of rediscovering ourselves, what Vasudha said, like when I truly got to know who I am, and then I was able to kind of project that, that's when my truth came out. And a lot of times I think we are really scared of that, because number one, to kind of face your own truth, and then the second level of being able to kind of blast that truth out to the world is also very scary. And then being sort of like at the face of being rejected, or all of those kind of things. So it does take a lot. And as I said, it's high time we all sort of share all this difficulties and the struggles we all face, and obviously sort of be there for each other. That's one of the most important things, I feel.
I
That's
think
awesome.
the 10 years ago, yourself who you are right now, the 10 years ago version of yourself would be geeked out about all the
Totally.
stuff you've done. So it's kind of like the person you want to become in 5 years, you get there, and then you want to be someone else. And I think,
Right.
I don't know, I think there's a sense of drive and ambition and weird universe alignment stuff that's happened with all of us. But I think under that was also intuition to keep going and
Right.
to wake up in the morning because we loved music so much. Like, if anything, the common thread with every crazy plane ride and this and that happening and following it, at the heart and the bottom of it was always music, whatever form that was. So I think in this global context, how you were asking Jason about what keeps you going in this like time of solitude when everyone's doing nothing and you're stuck in your houses, I think we are the luckiest ones because we have music this whole time. Like, we are the luckiest because we can fill that silence. And it's, that's what I think. Okay.
I agree. That's fantastic. That is a great point. One of the things that's been coming up here in a lot of the questions is, it's some of that core fundamental questions. You're all fantastic musicians that have invested hours and hours into your craft, into your artistry. And, a lot of the younger musicians that we all talk to, they're always looking, we always talk about this. They're looking for the silver bullet, right? They're looking for that magic key that's going to unlock, the secrets of the musical universe and make them incredible. But maybe if all of you could just talk a little bit about the investment in your training, and just even whether it's the private instruction that you've done or the training that you've done in school at Berklee or wherever, how in the balance of things, what is the formal training experience? What has it done for you? And, if you could point to like even specific instances with, Amir, you talked about your teacher in your work in California and how that opened up doors, but anywhere along that thread, and even today, as you're working, some of you work with producers, and producers are actually kind of, they're educators as well because they expose us to cool things in the creative process. But what are those formal educational experiences that have been really formative for you, that would help these musicians who are looking at, well, do I go and do this in school? Why would I do this versus not, and trying to just be self-taught? Where does that formal training help them?
I think it's really important just to highlight in this conversation, just because it's the global panel about an Indian musician. I think all of us can agree in Indian culture, even as a girl who grew up in LA, it wasn't normal to do this, to follow this,
Yeah.
and in a high level of education, to go to a place called Berklee. Like, that's just not, most of us are like, grow up, become a doctor, engineer, women get married. So we were already rebels from the get. But I think all of us, I don't know, that's all I just wanted to point out before we talk.
No, but that's great. That's the thing. You're totally cutting against the grain in what you've done. And then to actually, I think over time, at different points, I've had conversations with many of you about this, but just the idea to go to school for formal musical training, or to study music business or music therapy or songwriting or production, these are things that I'm sure were incredibly challenging discussions to have.
Definitely.
But could you talk about like, what are some of those experiences that you had that have helped to elevate you? in your career and in the work that you're doing as creative artists?
Yeah, I mean, I can just quickly jump in here. Like, I mean, the question you've asked, Jason, is really really brings attention to the fact where a lot of young musicians right now and are questioning that should I go to music school and spend 2 to 3 years or 4 years and get a degree? Because now you have drumeo.com, you have online educators, you can get so much information on YouTube. But I think what I tell a lot of young musicians is that that time that you're going to spend now, and just the privilege of having that time, is so crucial for your development that you're never going to get that back once you start working and kicking. So for me, on an average day, if I can even get 2.5, 3 hours to just practice, is truly a luxury, because I'm doing a radio bit, then I have to produce a song, I have to send the demo on Friday, I have to do this. You have meetings with your agent, manager. So I feel like that quality time that you're going to get when you're at music school is so essential for your you developing that relationship with this art form. And that I feel like no YouTube lesson or no one-off thing can give you that. It is that process that you have to go through. And a lot of times, like you said, a lot of these younger musicians are just looking for that quick fix, or like, how do I make it? How do I get it? And the answer is that in some ways, we all are never really going to make it. We are just sort of, as Zoya said, we are shedding skin. We become the version that we wanted to be of ourselves 5 years ago. And then 5 years have passed, moving on, because that's the only way your art is going to sort of survive this process, and you would be able to sort of live with what you've been creating over these years. And lastly, like, I think I really live by this quote by the late great trumpeter Roy Hargrove, who said, if you take care of the music will take care of you. And in my case, that's truly worked out. Whether I've landed myself up having a drink with my colleague or Leanne LaHavis, or getting this gig or that gig, it's just at that point in time your artistry speaks and the music speaks. Then it doesn't matter whether you're from India or whether you're from Jamaica or whether you're from the US. If you want to bring up your artistry to that level where people can't say no to your art, for that to happen, you really have to spend that time and find those valuable experiences. And of course, like, Berklee is an infinite pool for that. And find those educators who can really give you that headroom concept of, while you might need only this much amount of information to survive, but you still have that headroom to sort of push through, whether it might be, getting an additional production gig, or getting a hard reading gig to pay your bills, or songwriting skills, or whatever that might be. So the more skills you have, I think that is definitely going to benefit you in your career. So there's no discounting that, in my opinion, personally.
Excellent.
I just want to add one thing for
Mira,
music
please.
school. Yeah, I want to just add one thing for music school. For me personally, it was the hours that you put into your building your craft is super important. So whether it was singing for hours and hours and hours and hours when there was no social media to distract you, no comparison that was happening, and it was just like truly investing in it, sounding like the people, not sounding like unique at first. You were just imitating the people that you admire, and from there on you were adding things to your bucket of artistry, and that's how it was developing. But for people applying to music school, I think it's really important to, again, the why, like, why am I going there? For me, it was pretty clear. I'm not going to get a music therapy education in India the way that I want. I'm not going to get the network. So it was, yeah, it was, those things were really important. If you're going there to improve yourself as a musician, I think it's a hard look at yourself to understand, am I going to excel in a classroom setting, or am I going to excel more just with a one-on-one instructor? What am I going there for? So I think that clarity needs to be there before you invest so much time and money and all of those things.
That's great. And you brought up this point about networking, right? Which is, I see this network. I'm looking at the network here. And how did moving to another location, another country, and, in connecting, how does that build bridges and opportunities for you? What does your network what is the importance of networking in the success of the work that you're doing now?
That's a great question. Vasudha, you want to share something? Because now you're living in Mumbai and you have a different network. So,
Yeah, I feel that whole time that I spent in Berklee and getting to know all these musicians, working with them. I mean, that's where I worked on my album Attuned Spirits as well. When I got back, it was just even on like online, we would actually jam and think of ideas, and we'd work on things. So it's great networking from me sitting here in Mumbai to someone in Boston who's like doing trumpet sessions for me, and I'm it's incredible, and especially in times like these when I can have like a solid record with some incredible musicians and living in another corner of the world, because I really want them to play on this. It's not impossible anymore. And I think especially in times like these, it's all the more important because you have like sessions happening, most of them online, and it's great. And especially an institute like Berklee or all the music schools that you go to, which are globally interconnected, I think it was one of the best opportunities and one of the best ways for me to kind of meet all these incredible musicians. And I'm now friends with all of them. That social network is so strong, and then we want to work on another song, and we just say, okay, let's do this. So we find out time and we just make it happen. So it's amazing in those ways as well. And I think I would just like to add on to that thing for the younger singer-songwriters or musicians. I feel if I went to Berklee because I got exposed to it much later in life when I was already working as a professional, as a part of ASMA. But I decided to do that because when I decided to do that when I was 28. If I was 18 and I'd gone to Berklee, things would have been completely different. I think it kind of puts you in that sort of discipline, and that direction and discipline is so much needed in the formative years, especially when you're younger and you kind of learn things the right way. Of course, there are things on YouTube, there are online classes. I'm still learning Hindustani classical even till this day, and I don't think I'll never stop learning that. I go to my Guruji and it's one-on-one sessions with him. I just the idea of, I mean, there are online sessions. I did a music production course online, and so even after Berklee, so I feel learning never stops. But
yeah,
when you're starting off and you really want to figure out your future in it as a musician in the industry or a singer-songwriter, I think it's very, very important to invest in it. And that sort of discipline will only come, to me, it came when I went through a curriculum. So I went back to school and I went back as a student. You need somebody to push, because you can't always have that self-motivation thing going on. Somewhere you're going to slack. And I think if you want to excel, you kind of need that push. And an institute really gives you that. You get exposed to so much.
definitely.
Thank you. That's incredible. For those of you that are joining us for this talk, I strongly encourage you, if you haven't done this, all of these amazing people are online. You can follow them, go to their websites, follow them on social media, check out the music that they're releasing. It is beautiful what they're doing and incredibly engaging. So, here's an opportunity to follow some people again that are at the vanguard of what they're doing as artists, as creators, as entrepreneurs. And I go back to sort of a quote, talking about quotes, Tarun, from Clark Terry, and something that you said, Amira. One of Clark Terry's things that Clark Terry is an incredible trumpeter, composer, and educator. And the thing that he always said at every masterclass and every clinic was, we all do this as creative people, as artists. You imitate, you assimilate, and you innovate.
Then you innovate.
And one of the best ways now to begin to imitate and assimilate, it used to be listening to records, for those of you that have record players. But now we transcribe everything. We transcribe everything we hear. We transcribe everything we watch. And we transcribe, the artistry and the careers of the people that we hold in esteem. And so these folks that are here joining us today, these are people that you want to follow. These are people that you want to watch. You want to support their creativity and their artistry. They're going to be the guiding lights, I think, for many of us to check out. So I strongly encourage you to follow them. Follow Global Music Institute on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever they are online. And obviously, you can follow us at Berklee as well. And yeah, this has been an incredible discussion.
Wow, thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for that. And once again, I'm sorry that we went a little over time to all of those who have been with us for the session. Thanks, Abhinav, Zoya, Amira, and Vasudha for joining us. I know you are all very, very busy, and thanks for taking out the time and sharing your stories with everybody here. Because I really value, when we hear about stories of artists, like that inspires us. And that's been great today. Um, and we apologize that we couldn't get through all of the questions because a lot of them came right at the end, and so many questions sort of came in. So please write to us, and we'll try to come back to you with some answers and stay connected with us. We're going to do a few more sessions in the coming months, so we'll be announcing those as well. And yes, with that, we can wrap up today's session. Thank you, everybody.
It's
Thank
great to talk to
you.
everybody.
So
Thank
nice
you
to
all for
see
sharing.
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
So much. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye.